Hello, my name is Melvin Sandell. I am one of the consultants here at Finch Consulting, and I'm here with my colleague Richard Brown to talk to you a little bit today about the hierarchy of risk control and how this feeds into your duty to do suitable and sufficient risk assessments and manage the risks in your workplace. Richard.
Thank you, Flip. My name's Richard Brown. Thanks for the introduction, Flip. I'm a principal consultant at Finch Consulting, mostly carrying out expert witness work, and I frequently use the hierarchy of control in my reports. I'm just going to give a short overview, really, Flip, about the regulations that tend to draw on the hierarchy of control, and then I'll hand over back to you. Okay. The critical regulation is the Management of Health and Safety at Work regulations, and the hierarchy of control is found in the Schedule of Prevention, which is Appendix 1, or Schedule 1, in the back of those regulations in the approved Code of Practice. The hierarchy is something that you have to start at the top with, and Flip's going to explain about reasonable practicability in a little while, but I'm just going to tell you a little about the basics of the hierarchy. It's found throughout regulations in UK health and safety law, and I mentioned the management regulations, but also in control of chemicals, in the COSH regulations, in the work at height regulations, in confined space regulations, and lots of others. And Flip's going to give you a short example of how to apply the hierarchy and how it links to reasonable practicability. The fundamentals really of the hierarchy of control are to avoid risky work if you can. If you can't do that, then you have to control it. And very often the regulations require that you control it collectively. If not, you use personal controls, and then PPE or discipline, and the use of safe systems of work tends to be at the bottom of the hierarchy. So that's the basics, Philip, of the regulations. Can you tell us a little about an example, perhaps?
Thank you, Richard. So I'm going to very quickly and simply apply the hierarchy of control to working at height to illustrate the point. So your object first then is to eliminate work at height, and there are many ways that this can be done these days, perhaps for example by using a drone to do inspection of things at height. Now, assuming then that you can't get away with that and you have to go up at height to do your work, then your first option would be to use an existing workplace which may already be fitted with walls or handrails that would keep you safe while you were doing that work and reduce the possibility of you of falling at all. Assuming then that you can't get away with working on the floor and you actually have to go up at height, ideally you would work from an existing safe workplace, perhaps an adjacent building, or perhaps a walled area which is near to where you're going to work, that you could actually do your work from. Supposing this wasn't possible, the next step would be to create your own safe workplace, perhaps by using a scaffold. But if that's not possible either, then the next step down would be to take a workplace with you, a safe workplace with you. So perhaps a MEWP or a scissor lift, which would have the appropriate handrails and kickboards already attached to it, and you could use that to get access to where you wanted to. Now, if none of those are possible and you have to be at height in the workplace in a situation where there was an open edge that you could possibly work from, then a running line and a harness which would actually prevent you going over the edge if you got too close would be the next step down. Now, Richard's going to talk in a little while about collective over individual protection measures, but this would be an individual protection measure and would have no collective value if there were more than one of you working on there. So the next step down the hierarchy, and we're getting towards the bottom here, is the idea that you can fall, but the distance of the fall or the harm that's likely to result from the fall would be reduced such that the harm would be reduced or eliminated. So this would be inertia reel attachments to the harness, or perhaps airbags or nets, which again would allow you to fall a bit but would reduce the distance and reduce the harm. But just remember, whenever you're thinking about using these methods of risk control, some of which will be cheaper, some of which will be easier, you need to justify each step down that hierarchy by risk control, and always remember, if something goes wrong, you may need to justify those decisions to step down that hierarchy in court. Richard.
Thanks, Flip. So in summary, if we can, and this is applying the hierarchy to any of the regulations, but we're using here work at height, if we can prevent work at height, then that's the ultimate control. If we can't do that, we need to look at collective protection. And Flip talked about using the existing building, so that could be a parapet wall as an example, or scaffolding systems. And then down towards the bottom of the hierarchy, we need to think about individual protection, such as running lines. And I would stress that, if we are right down to the bottom of the hierarchy, if we're allowing people to fall and we're mitigating the height that they fall, then we should be looking at collective fall measures, such as bean bags or nets. Inertia rails are the bottom of the hierarchy, and the reason really is that they require an individual to actually physically clip on. And when we're looking at things like bean bags or nets, the control is already in place, and the individual who falls didn't need to actually take any action themselves. So that's a summary of the hierarchy of control from both Flip and I. We hope you found it useful, and if you have any questions, please do contact us. Thank you.